I don't know where to start. Where to begin about my feelings of this thing. This story is one that I've had to keep secret in fear that friends or family may persecute me and send me to a mental facility. What I've seen, what I've heard, has been shot down by many as simple lies. The story hopefully will open the eyes to some who don't believe in my words of it and what it is. Let me start off on a new note. The first time I encountered it was the late summer of 2008. My family's house had been foreclosed since we could just not afford to pay it off anymore because of all the land that we owned. We bought a small house in a nice neighborhood that was just about 2 miles away from the one prior. I guessed we just liked the area. It was all well for a while. I settled into the new home quite all right. It felt like home. It felt nice. Pleasant. Even when it rained, you felt safe, secure. Then one day, after we settled in, I decided to go for a walk on the nearby trail. I walked along it. No one else was there, not even as I looked as far in front of me, and as I turned around, not even a single person. It seemed a bit odd. It was a nice day out, so why am I the only to enjoy the day on this sidewalk? However, I guess that I shouldn't be complaining about having a trail to myself. I continued my trek and peered to both sides of the trail. To my left, a rather small but steep hill that led to more houses, and to my right was just a thin woods, teeming with green trees and dirt. The woods ran across the trail the entire way. Being my boy self, I jumped into the nest of foliage, hoping to find some adventure. I looked around and examined everything I saw. I picked up a stick and began to swing it like a sword. I continued inside the small, narrow woods to find something that mildly disturbed me. A small rabbit about the size of a large man's shoe lay dead across the leafy earth. I dropped the stick and knelt down on one knee to examine it further. Its stomach had been torn out, down the middle with the entrails barely seeping out. Something more odd was that there seemed to be no bite marks or scratches, as if it just seemed to die. Then a weird feeling in the back of my head entered, a tingling feeling. It didn't hurt, but it was very irritating. It made me want to just hit my head against a tree to make it stop, but even as a child I knew that that was foolish. I didn't feel any more adventure in me after the rabbit, so I just trekked back home and ate supper without informing my family of the rabbit. The next morning I woke up to hear talking downstairs. My mom and sister were talking about something on the deck. I got up and looked to my mom, who had a disgusted look on her face. "What's going on?" I asked in a worried tone. "I think an animal left some of its lunch on our porch." I looked out to see under our porch swing was a pile of animal entrails. I whispered to myself, "The rabbit." My mom cleaned off and then threw them away. Nothing more happened during the day. It went on as all days go on. But that night, I had a dream. At least, I thought that it was a dream. It started out with me in the woods. I was lying down in the same spot where I found the rabbit. It was cold. I was naked, and I didn't have a clue what was happening. I couldn't move, but I saw in the distance a shadowy figure that seemed to be constructed out of the darkness. It seemed to almost be a good 7 feet tall, had a deer-like shape for a head, horns curled from its shoulders and back. He walked like a man, but had hooves, or what seemed to be hooves. I don't know. He walked towards me, creeping past the trees. A once dark forest had been made even darker as a cloud of misty fog followed.
It's Trail.
It spoke in a demonic monotone.
You think that you are of a higher importance than a rabbit. That you are greater.
I couldn't respond. I was shocked at everything that was happening. He spoke once more.
The earth will die, and all will cry. Bring the tears of the unfaithful, the untrustworthy, and the cynical men and women to me. They don't know me by an image, but by their undying faith. Maybe they should have listened to the crazy man on the street. Maybe they should have listened to the one who tried to convince them that it was no myth, or of what they all saw was indeed true flesh and fact. You know, my son, that little thing that just catches your curious eye, that little unnatural feeling that makes you feel out of place, that something is wrong, that physical feeling when you feel something touch you, but you debunk it as just your mind. That is me, the Midnight Man.
He knelt to my level, and with a soft yet noticeable touch, he prodded my stomach with a pointed, sharp claw. He rose and walked away. I peered at my naked body. My stomach turned into a shadowy black, and it traveled through my bare body. And then I awakened in my bed, sweating through my sheets, glanced down to my pillow to see it covered in blood. I touched my face to feel blood dripping from my nose. Since the day these events occurred, I've been seeing more and more things, and myself being changed. My grades in school dropped, and I began to slack off and focus on the world out of school. The woods. My house. The Midnight Man. Though I haven't seen or heard of him since, I can feel his presence within me. I don't know if he's evil or good. I don't know that I know more about life and myself being after my encounter with him. I still suffer from the tingling in my head, and I always think about what he said since that day. I believe that this man can enter anyone's thoughts and well-being, and break you down until you change entirely. This thing is dangerous to anyone, and whatever this thing, it must be stopped.